Here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding Tuesday. It was 12/3/32. On this fine afternoon, talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P in the green, up pretty much 1% at this exact minute. Actually, 1.02%, 1.03% on the heels of the CPI data this morning. Like, oh my gosh. Again, it depends on the lens that you are viewing the data through, right? So if your lens is tariffs are going to be a big drain on the economy, you've been saying it since April or March or February, since the Mexico Canada situation started, and then the rest of those, then this data was bad, right? It just shows continued price, uh, continued inflation, continued trends of prices going up, right? Uh, if you look at it through the other spectrum, where you're like, okay, maybe it's not as bad as it's been hyped, then it was good data today, right? So nice little tweet. I think I retweeted it or UPB did, but someone on FinTwit posted was so if you just pull up, you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and you go and see the CPI data. It's right there. It gives you the chart, shows all the ups and downs for the categories for the month, and then year over year trend, right? So the funny thing about today's CPI read was that the things that drove the inflation number, right? Because 3.1% core inflation, right? You remove the energy and you remove food. That's how you get the core, and the core was 3.1% on estimates of like 2.9%. But the things that drove it, which would be like medical, shelter, electricity, uh, the things that were not subject to tariffs were the things that drove the inflation, right? So there was the argument around tariffs are, inflation is causing, tariffs are causing inflation to rise. Um, so, and then I talked about this morning with the core stuff, right? I mean, the things that concerning, right? Back Liberation Day on April 7th, to kind of, I guess, keep an even keel about things. To me, I think the panic really sets in, and especially during the COVID days when there's empty shelves, right? I mean, that's when, you can talk about inflation and prices, and obviously the egg prices at the start of the year. Those are things that really hit the strike the consumer's core. Even myself, right? That's the last thing I want, especially to me, the grocery store necessities. But the things that went up, the furniture, right? I mean, someone I posted on Twitter about the Goldman Sachs forecast that the consumer is going to bear the brunt of the tariffs, which hey, they might at some point, right? No one knows without 100% with 100% certainty. But we're trading now. We're trading a little bit of the future, right? The market's a forward pricing looking mechanism. So right now the market's pricing that hey, tariffs aren't as bad as it's been hyped out to be so far. But I posted on FinTwit in regards to Goldman Sachs saying that consumers are going to eventually face the brunt of the tariffs costs, right? And then someone posted those articles, right? And there was already one. Wall Street Journal did one about Amazon raising prices, which was kind of like an off on kind of thing, right? It was selective. And then someone posted the link. CNBC did something on Walmart, right? And if you read the article, it says a 4-pack of pots and pans was up 50% from the month before, and then it was a 3-in-1 travel package item was up 40%. I'm like, these are the items that you're worried about tariff costs, right? If you don't need new pots and pans, oh, you go out and get pots and pans, and the price is high, you just don't buy them, right? And then the price eventually, you market, supply, demand. But anyway, so that's kind of my little rant there. We'll see how PPI is on Thursday. We still have retail sales data on Friday, consumer confidence. So by no means is the market out of harm's way. And of course, this morning, data was kind of decent, right? And then you have POTUS coming out with the Powell situation, right? Oh, we're looking into possibly looking at Powell for a lawsuit against his construction costs or how they did it. I don't know the exact details, right? They're going to look into the delays and I don't know whatever he's who knows, right? The concern here is like if he did cut rates, would they be doing a lawsuit against him? That's the questions, right? So if you're doing a lawsuit against Powell, or you're going to do it for because that's what's deservedly so, right? Then that's one thing. But if you think about the scenario, say, well, if he did cut rates, would there still be a lawsuit? Then that's when there's an issue, right? But for now, hopefully, again, he goes all the way to May. This kind of plays itself out. September they cut rates. Jackson Hole, he comes out and comes out somewhat dovish, and I think that'll appease everybody, and we move on from it. All right, so that's kind of the markets there. I talked about 628, 646 on the SPY as the trading range. We got up to 642.62. We're chopping here at 642.50, so still have that range going. And that's that. All right, now just quick on some individual names. United Healthcare up. It was up over 4% after the open, all the way up to nearly 263. We've seen this plenty of times where you have positions. They're up great, rallying today, and then tomorrow's a totally different story, and it gives back all the games. So this morning I was talking about it's the first, well, one of the few times United Healthcare has had 3 consecutive days into the green. Uh, some nice continuation. I could see it trading into the 270s, but of course I have my, I have calls, so I'm biased for that. So I used the opportunity to close some more of my calls out for a little over 100%. And then, I was thinking of adding some more strikes, and it's just it's tough, right? So for now, I'll just continue to hold what I have here, and then if there's, let's say there's a breakthrough, and you looked 50-day moving average at 281, is that a spot where it heads to in the coming days? So that might be a spot I look to get. If it has continuation tomorrow, I'll look for some more strikes. All right, so that's United Healthcare. So now riding free with some profits there, and then Lemonade. Wow, I mean, it was gapping at the open, sold off all the way down. I think it hit 52. Oh no, it hit 50. It hit 50.81 in the early morning. Let's see here. Yeah, by 10:15, and then boom, it starts to squeeze 52, 53, 54, and then all of a sudden it's 55, it gets all the way up to $56. So used the move to close some of my 60 strikes out for 100%. I held the rest. It's pulled back. It's down here at 54.76. The thing is, it's at 53.85. And then the 56 handle broke was the highest level that Lemonade has traded since November of 2021 or January. It's one of those months. So pretty much 4.5 years ago, at minimum, that's the highest it's traded. So it hasn't traded that high in 4.5 years. It has a 30% short interest. So that means every single short, unless they're flipping or, I mean, there is elevated premiums on the calls and puts. So there's probably ways to sell premium against your position to help offset some losses. But not only that, interest, right? These names that have high short interest also have higher margin rates. So when you're borrowing shares, it's more expensive. So to me, it's like, when is this towel going to get thrown in by some of the shorts? So we'll see what happens here tomorrow. Some follow through. I think the higher it goes, the bigger the moves are going to be, and it's probably be more volatile. But I'll just continue to hold those calls back to life. Happy there. And then IIPR. And then I was looking. So IIPR was on a watch list this morning, kind of a sympathy play with what's going on in the cannabis space. It's one of those names I've followed over the years, right? So it's a REIT. It's one of the true only players in the space who are able to provide real estate, because the issue when you're a dispensary or one of these shops, you can't get lending, right? Because the banks, that marijuana is not classified in a proper level for folks to get funding. So it's like if you want to sell cocaine, right? Banks aren't going to give you money for it. So bad analogy, but that's kind of how it is. So IRPR is like a niche. It's a REIT, so it leases out, rents out space, real estate for these for that sector. The thing, and it's done great over the years. The thing is, most recently, I don't know how long, 12 months, one of its major tenants defaulted. I don't know if it was like 10, 15% of its revenues. So a lot of the reason why it's kind of fallen from the 90s and below is some of that. And the other part of it is, of course, of the headwinds with the cannabis space, the regulation, the hopes that, hey, the last administration was going to reclassify marijuana. They didn't. And now there was concern that maybe this new one wouldn't either. But now that looks like it's more likely that there will be some kind of news in the next 2 weeks or so. So anyway, added those IIPR calls. It's not the most active liquid name. Like it's one of those names that people don't look at too much until the sector catches fire. And then its name that really starts to move. It's up 8% today. No news, no catalyst. I mean, it was up yesterday, but not as much. My calls are up over 100%. At some point, I'll look to lock some in, maybe in the next 20 minutes, and then I'll hold the rest. But I have October strikes, plenty of time. You start looking at some areas. I mean, 57, right? So if IIPR breaks over 57 in the coming days, it's off to the races. It has a 15% yield, right? So some of the issue with IRPR, you got to factor in its ex-divvy date, because it's very expensive when it's, a 15% divvy. That means, I don't know, $2, 150. I have to go look. 170 is somewhere, I guess, their dividend. So that comes right off the top of the stock. So you have to bake that in if you're holding into expiration. We got plenty of time, but one day you wake up and the stock's down to $1.70 on ex-divvy date. So keep that in the back of your mind as well. But I'll look to lock some in to cover costs, ride the rest. Really like this one. That's IPR. Lulu, right? Nice reversal today. I don't know why I couldn't do it yesterday, but all the way up to 192 yesterday. I gave it all back, and then today down. Did it hit 185? 186.76, and then off to the races over 190, then 191. Then it was chopping around 192, hit 193 about 2 o'clock, and it's been chopping around this range ever since. I was actually looking at next week's calls. The 210s look interesting next week. I was actually looking at the 202.50s for this week. Those are 20 cents at times. Those are a double. And then I was like, do I average down to my 205s? And then now I'm like, I'm just going to hold the 205s. It's another 3-4%. Those going to be a couple bags tomorrow. So I'll just continue to hold those. No reason to risk it because today's move is not really much in regards to any kind of catalyst outside of maybe inflation concerns around clothing or whatever. Maybe that bodes well. I don't know. So like the Lulu setup. Hopefully that one comes back from dead and calls can be a couple bags tomorrow if that continues to move. CGC pretty much flat today with nice gap and run at the open. I almost went and got the January strikes. I'll be patient. Again, another name I just don't want to be staring at in January if this is the end of the run, at least short term for these names, cannabis. And then some other names to watch. MDB, I'm waiting for this one to bounce. When I say waiting, I was waiting to get calls last week, and then it, all the way over 240 down to 200, and it's starting to bounce here today. I don't know to trust it yet, so I'll be patient there. And then last but not least, the line. So similar. Yesterday I was looking for calls to play for a move to 150. It sells off all the way down into the low 130s, and then today reversing all those losses today up nearly 4%. At some point, a line's going to go on a buyback move, right? So the company has a 200. Well, they have $1 billion share buyback authorized. They already said they're going to buy back 200 million already into the end of the year, and it's usually going to happen quick. And you'll see the stock melt higher for a couple of days. You're like, what's going on? It's because the company's buying back stock. Oh, and then Reddit, right? So Reddit keeps moving up 2%, 1%, 2%, and the calls continue to go up, but not enough for the risk, right? So I was looking this morning. I'm like, oh, it's up in near 228, 229. But the 240s aren't up enough to warrant the risk. And now you look, stock is green, and the 240 calls are down 20%, right? So or 17%. So, when I was getting them last week, I think it was 150 for the 240s. And then I was looking earlier today. Yeah, so it's been tough unless you're looking to scalp, which is not my forte, right? At some point, I'll maybe Wednesday, maybe tomorrow, I'll look for some calls to play for upside. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.